Welcome to the Elden Conspiracy, the channel where I do unhinged lore speculation about the story of Elden Ring. I don't go into a Souls game expecting the NPC quest lines to tie up all the loose ends and give positive resolution to a character's story. I expect a good amount of mystery, and Elden Ring is no exception. One mystery which has befuddled lore hunters since release is the fate of War-counselor Iji, after taking Ranni's questline to its most definitive conclusion. How did he die, and why? If the assassins were the culprits, does it mean that Ranni ordered his execution? Why would she do this? And does the state of Iji's body indicate that the assassins somehow possess the power of the Godskin's black flame, along with the red flame of destined death? In this video, I will present a theory which hopefully explains the most pertinent questions. After defeating Astel, reaching the Moonlight Altar, and receiving the Dark Moon Greatsword from Ranni, we still have a matter of her two servants to resolve. Blythe, the half-wolf at this point, will be conspicuously absent from the world. If we talk to Iji, he will tell us that he himself imprisoned Blythe at the Forlorn Hound Everjail in Limgrave.
The two fingers gave Blythe to Lady Ranni as a faithful follower. Her very shadow, incapable of treachery. But if Lady Ranni, as an Empyrean, resists being an instrument of the two fingers, the shadow will go mad, transforming from a follower into a horrid curse. But such is his destiny. In such matters, Blythe's own thoughts hold no weight. It pains me so. But he must be neutralized. For Lady Ranni's sake.
He did this, he says, because an Empyrean shadow will go crazy if the Empyrean herself decides to defy the will of the fingers. This creates a conflict within the shadow which cannot be resolved. Iji's theory is doubtful, considering the behavior of the two Empyrean shadows we meet in-game, but I'll touch on this later. If we then go to the Everjail, we can choose to free Blythe from his prison.
Old Iji trapped me here. Told me I'd bring naught but bale to Lady Ranni. But there's no chance that could happen. I'm part of her being. Her very shadow. I thought old Iji knew as much. Honestly, I don't know what's going on anymore. I don't understand. Why would Iji do this? I could never intend harm to Lady Ranni. What's he thinking?
Blythe knows that it was Iji who trapped him in the Everjail, but even after this, he bears no ill will against his comrade, and treats it like an honest misunderstanding. This does not at all look like a beast who has gone feral, as Iji would suggest, but rather someone innocent and dismayed. Reloading the area will cause Blythe to move elsewhere. The next place we see him is outside Ranni's Rise, howling at the moon. Around him are the corpses of Black Knife assassins he has presumably killed in self-defense. Here we see Blythe seemingly go feral like Iji suggested he would. Only, is it because of some inborn tendency, or is it because he has been betrayed by the people he has valiantly protected his entire life, seeing his role as Ranni's right hand be usurped by a mere tarnished in the space of a few days? But I digress. There is no question about what happened to the Black Knife assassins. Blythe killed them in self-defense. But what is more interesting about this encounter is Iji's response when you tell him.
Unthinkable. How could Blythe? How did he break free from his cell? No. More importantly, Blythe became a curse that plagued Lady Ranni. Yet even in madness, gave himself to her. I've made a grave misjudgment. And I thought myself a capable war-counselor. I'll catch up with you soon enough, Blythe. When I do, I only hope you'll accept my apology.
Iji is immediately apologetic. This only makes sense if Iji was somehow responsible. He already admitted to imprisoning Blythe, but only accepts the full ramifications of a decision when it results in death. This dialogue is the strongest evidence they have that Iji had some sort of role in Blythe's death. There is no other reason for this type of reaction. But first, we have to get one thing out of the way. Ranni did not send the assassins after Blythe and Iji. Not only is she in doll form at the time we see these events occur, but it is also extremely out of character.
This is farewell, my dear. Tell Blythe and Iji I love her.
Ranni did not bear ill will against her subjects. It is true she treated them with condescension.
Blythe and Iji both art willing to give too much to me, yet they both understand what lieth beyond the dark path, that I must betray everything and rid the world of what came before. Now, should I add thee to the list? Another one, kind of heart, as kind of heart as they.
Ranni did not hate Blythe or Iji. Blythe she recognized as one of her own blood relative, yet she wanted to keep him at arm's length because he reminded her of the hold the Fingers once had over her. She believes they are too loyal to a fault and mocks them for it, but nothing indicates the callousness which would be required to murder. Iji imprisoned Blythe because he felt the half-wolf would become a baleful shadow and haunt Ranni to the end of existence. He's doing it to help Ranni, or so he believes. But once he learns that Blythe was loyal to the end, his whole motivation is turned upside down. He realizes he has just attempted to orchestrate the death of a friend. And this is where we get to the heart of the matter which this video concerns. If we reload the area after talking to Iji, we are met with the sight of his burning corpse, with the bodies of assassins scattered about. The conclusion which the community widely accepts is that the assassins came upon Iji and murdered him for mysterious reasons. Perhaps they wanted to tie up loose ends, take out anyone who had any inkling of what happened on the night of the Black Knives. But I think there is a more elegant solution. To begin with, we must acknowledge that Iji only dies when you tell him of Blythe's death. If you kill Blythe and don't tell Iji, he will still be alive when you meet him. What this means lore-wise is that the assassins come to kill Iji in response to something he does after you talk to him about Blythe. If it was Ranni sending the assassins after him, or the assassins acting independently, it wouldn't make any sense for this dialogue to be the trigger. Iji would simply die if this was the case, but the fact that the dialogue is the trigger should tell us something about what happens afterward. Second, let's talk about the Black Flame. As many people have pointed out, Iji's corpse being consumed by Black Flame makes little sense if the Black Knives were responsible, since the fragment of the Rune of Death embedded in the Black Knives have the power of red Black Flame. The gray Black Flame enveloping Iji's corpse would suggest the involvement of the Godskin Apostles, of which there is no other evidence. But what if the assassins weren't there to kill Iji? Again, we have to acknowledge that Iji only dies when you trigger that specific dialogue. So what does Iji actually do?
I'll catch up with you soon enough, Blythe. When I do, I only hope you'll accept my apology.
How does he know he will join Blythe soon? This is a quite ominous phrase. If he knows he is going to die, I propose that Iji decided to take his own life to deal with the guilt of orchestrating his friend's death. The assassins were there to prevent him. In this case, the Black Flame comes from Iji himself. This presents a more valid theory on the origin of the Black Flame. It is more likely that the Black Flame came from a troll rather than the assassins for the following reasons. While we usually see the Black Flame being used by the Godskins, it is also used by the Black Flame monks, who are themselves former monks of the Giant's Flame. This implies that the Black Flame is somehow a derivative of the Giant's Flame. We also have the fact that two of the Godskin boss fights are encountered in and around the Divine Towers. You also find the Glomide Queen's sword in a Divine Tower. The Divine Towers themselves use the same exact patterns as the Giant's Forge, indicating that the Black Flame is somehow tied to the Giants, or the Glomide Queen herself was an ally of the Giants. Based on these two connections, we could say that Iji the Troll, who is descended from the Giants, would have had knowledge of the Black Flame. In this way, he would have performed a self-immolation in response to hearing of Blythe's death. The assassins came to stop him, and he was forced to defend himself in order to go through with the deed. While this theory explains the Black Flame and the dialogue trigger, It does assume much about Iji's connection to the Black Knife assassins, i.e., why would they want to prevent his suicide? Perhaps for Ranni's sake? I'd like to return for a moment to the question of the Empyrean Shadow's agency. Will an Empyrean's shadow betray them if they go against the will of the Fingers, as Iji says? If we look at the two Empyrean shadows we encounter in-game, I think the opposite is true. Malekith stood by Marika's side even after she shattered the Elden Ring. If there was any act which ran counter to the Fingers' designs, this was it. If you're of the opinion that Marika had a hand in the Eye of the Black Knives as well, this is just another act which should have driven Malekith to betray his master. But instead, we get the opposite. Malekith is intensely loyal, even fearful of Marika, despite all she has done to spite the Fingers. You do fight Garank over the course of his questline. However, it is left ambiguous whether it is Marika's treachery or the consumption of Deathroot which is the cause. Blythe is the other example which further proves Iji wrong. Even after Ranni slew her own Empyrean flesh and stole the Rune of Death to nearly kill a demigod, Blythe is still loyal to her. Blythe even considers Iji a friend even after getting imprisoned in the Everjail. And when we do fight Blythe, it is left ambiguous again whether he went feral because of Ranni's betrayal of the Fingers or because he's just been betrayed by his former friend and mistress. If Iji's theory is true, then the exact times when the shadows become feral are extremely odd, because they happen in response to actions by the player. Their aggression is never turned against the Empyrean, as Iji would suggest, but against the Tarnished. What we do see, however, is a baleful shadow, using the exact same model as Blythe, who has tracked us down to the Ainsel Aqueduct. While the shadow does look like Blythe, it becomes very clear that this is a distinct creature, since Ranni says shortly afterward, "Tell Blythe and Iji that I love them." While we do not see any evidence of shadows turning against the Empyreans, we do see the Fingers sending baleful shadows in the guise of the loyal shadow, to perhaps kill the Empyrean who has strayed from their path. It's possible that Iji witnessed this at some point and mistook the baleful shadow for the loyal one, and then thought that Blythe would eventually turn against Ranni. Whether or not Iji's theory about Empyrean shadows is true, the circumstances of his death should leave more mysteries yet to be uncovered. This has been the Elden Conspiracy, signing out.